Welcome to the Business of You, the show that empowers you to put yourself out there and build your personal brand. I'm your host, Michelle Griffin, helping you each week with expert tips, inspiring stories, and personalized coaching so you can master your reputation and build your future, showing up as the brand and business of you. I'm excited you're here. Now let's get going with today's show. All right, guys, welcome back to this week's episode of The Business of You. I'm your host, Michelle Griffin. I'm excited you are here. Not only are we going to talk something that is a lot aligned about what I've been doing and what many of you have been doing, it's how to transition. I can't talk today. How to transition from corporate to consultant. And my guest today here has been doing this for 7 years, so successfully with like Fortune 20, 50 companies. So we cannot wait to get into it. So without further ado, welcome to the show, Stacey Danheiser.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
You are so welcome. Well, Stacey, for those who don't know you yet, tell us a little quick, brief story, background story, who you are, what are you doing, and then the story of this whole, what we're talking about today, going from corporate to consultant.
Yeah. So it's a quick sort of background on myself. I started my career in consumer marketing. I spent 6 years working for several different companies in consumer side, and then I switched over to B2B marketing. And I worked for a couple more companies, 5 Fortune 500 companies in total, before I decided to hang up my corporate hat and to become a consultant. And since then, I started Shake Marketing Group. And we work with B2B organizations to help them with customer research, with value proposition and messaging development, and then marketing strategy. I've also written 2 marketing books, and I'm launching a new program that's aimed at helping to coach individual marketers and corporate marketers who really want to gain more credibility in their space and get the ear and the eye of the C-suite. So.
No, you forgot to mention one thing because I'm a member of it and I want to break down that. It's another part of your outreach. Do you want to tell them about?
SOAR Marketing Society. Yes. And I just started SOAR Marketing Society not too long ago with, it's an exclusive online community just for B2B marketers. And our mission really is to help marketing elevate the overall profession and just gain more credibility in their role. And then be able to communicate strategically with both the customer and then their internal organization. So what we talk about in there, we do small group events and discussions and chats and share frameworks and ideas, but with the whole intention of becoming more strategic and valued member of the team.
Yeah, no, it's great. I think I was one of the founding members. So I wanted to make sure it's a shout out. And I was lucky enough to be able to talk about LinkedIn and personal branding. So thank you for that. It's a good group of people. So we'll put a link in the show notes. So if you're a B2B marketer, definitely need to check that out. So Stacey, 7 years ago, I think is what you told me. It was 7 years. So give us a little bit of backstory, which I'm sure a lot of us feel. I think I probably felt the way. What led you to think, okay, I need to get out there, and then walk us through the journey? Because before we went live, you were telling me a little bit about what you thought at first and what you think now. So bring us along that journey because it's really important and interesting.
Yeah. So, I mean, like I said, I worked at 5 different Fortune 500 companies. I had equal jobs in strategy and execution. And what I learned sort of in my corporate career is that I loved marketing. I was very passionate about developing my team. But I found myself on a daily basis teaching people about marketing internally. And so, I would sit in the same meetings with the same people and explain a topic, and then we'd have to rehash the exact same meeting the following week because they just didn't understand it. And so I got to the point where I was like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? I'm basically in internal sales. I'm selling every single day. And if I'm selling this much internally, I might as well just start my own thing. And so that's what I did. That was really the kind of, the impetus for starting my thing. And I think there's a lot of advice, out there right now of starting a side gig. I was not one of those people. I was a new mom. I was, working however many hours a week in a demanding corporate job. There was no way I was going to have time to start a side gig. So I just kind of like cut the ties and leapt into doing my own thing. And when I announced it to my company, they ended up becoming really my first client. So I kind of teed that up and said, by the way, I'm starting my own marketing consultancy. Do you want to be my first client? And they said yes. So, so that's kind of the, why I left from corporate to consultant. And there was a decision that I needed to make, which was the type of clients that I was going after. And having worked in the marketing function for a while, and I always worked with really big agencies. We were with, some of the top agencies in New York and LA, and we didn't hire a lot of independent consultants. And I wanted to appear bigger than just myself. And so I decided that I was going to put more effort and energy into branding my company, which is Shake Marketing Group. So I spent a lot of extra time, creating a website and a logo and, all the things company related, just to give the illusion really that I was a bigger company than just myself. And that worked for a while. I mean, I ended up getting, and I still do work with several Fortune 500 companies. I don't know how many of them, actually go to my website or, know more about my company. But what I realized on this journey along the way is I co-wrote 2 marketing books, which were obviously written by me, not by Shake Marketing Group. And it sort of started this path of, it's not really an either or. I need a company brand and I need a personal brand. So I started getting serious about that, 1 or 2 years ago, working with Michelle and helping to sort of define, what is my personal brand and how is it complementary to my company brand, but also kind of standalone, and I will talk about things as an individual and on a personal level that I wouldn't necessarily share like on a company page. So, so it's been an interesting journey, kind of juggling both of those brands. But that was my decision to, and realization, I should say, of needing both.
You hear that so often, especially when you're ingrained in that corporate or agency side, you think you need bigger is better, right? But at the end of the day, especially since the pandemic, people are just realigning, the reassessing, we want the humanistic. And that's why I love working with personal brands myself and also do personal branding, because it humanizes our brand. It cuts to the chase. Everything's changed in the last couple of years. So when we worked together, we aligned, all your positioning and all the differentiation. And we worked really hard to do that community, because it sounds like the community and all the stuff you're working on now, it comes from your founding story of what you were struggling with in corporate. And then ironically, you were seen and you love to teach marketing, so it's made a wonderful thing. And that's so important when you get out and do a personal brand business, have that founding story as your why, because not only that, one of the things I've loved seeing you this year, you've gotten out on LinkedIn, posting daily, and you speak so much about marketing strategy and how marketing needs a seat at the table. So I love how you translated that. And I always said, you need to be out there and you're doing really well. So I have to give her hands up for that, because she just posted in our community, 365 creators, her wins, and it's been phenomenal. But let's go back to that area that if someone is in your shoes, either in corporate or just newly launched, because I do work with a lot of people in your shoes who are much like what I was, leaving to do your own thing, where should they start? I mean, you had that 7-year realization, and then the last 2, you got really in depth. What would be your advice for someone who wants to just get out there, do it right, not make the mistakes? What would you suggest, first of all?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a couple of things. One thing that was surprising to me, and that I would encourage people to have these conversations is, there was a client that I worked with, and just a little bit of background kind of on the types of clients I work with. It's generally either a head of sales, a head of a business unit, a head of marketing that I end up contacting. And because I spent so long in corporate, I have a pretty big network in those types of job functions and companies. And so I reached out naturally when I left to go start my own thing. And it was interesting, kind of the feedback that I got back, which was, oh my gosh, yeah, I would love to talk to you. I always thought you were you were the most strategic marketer that I've ever worked with. And it made me realize that I had a personal brand, even though I didn't know it. And so a good starting place is to figure out what are the perceptions that people have of you. because that's reality, right? Versus kind of aspirational. And I think we always walk this fine line when we talk about personal branding or company branding, which is what's real versus aspirational. And we can kind of take them on that journey, but it's interesting to figure out what is real and what do people perceive you as today. So you can leverage some of those characteristics and words and things that people are already using to describe you. So a couple practical things you can do is, ask for LinkedIn recommendations, because I find a lot of little golden nuggets in how people write about you in a recommendation. So you can leverage some of those words. And then, of course, just talking to some of your coworkers or your colleagues, your boss, even your friends, your spouse, et cetera, just to get sort of that well-rounded picture. And then part 2 of that is really to define your brand. And we talked about, I think you and I have had a conversation about personality tests, and I'm like a personality test junkie. And so that's another thing is like, getting a perspective of what people think of you, and then also doing some type of personality test. All of that helps you to then define your brand. And so you can, weed through all of that and say, okay, there are certain words that keep popping up. These are the things that I definitely want to try to hone. Because I think, if we don't have clarity and we can't succinctly tell somebody what it is that we stand for, they're going to make it up. And we'll have no choice. So, the best personal brands, celebrities do a great job of this, right? Scrolling through some celebrity Twitter accounts is a really interesting way too, to see like how people are branding themselves, and what they talk about. And a lot of them don't necessarily talk about the job, right? They don't say, I'm an actor. They say like, making you laugh. I'm here to make you laugh, right? Or here to entertain you. Or so it's just, I think there's different ways that you can kind of get inspired, that you don't just have to be defined by your job title today. And that was, that's like a corporate thing that you kind of just get ingrained in. Well, I'm a VP of marketing, and therefore I lead with everything as VP of marketing. But then when you kind of start developing the personal brand a little bit more, you realize there's a lot more to yourself than just that job title.
That is probably one of the hardest things. All that you said, we'll have to unpack that. But the last thing, how to break off the layers of that corporate role is really hard for me, especially, I was in B2B professional services. I worked alongside lawyers and insurance and, accountants. So really, traditionally buttoned up areas, right? So it's really hard. And, it's taken me, it's like peeling back the layers. I see that on LinkedIn, but what has changed, the silver lining the last couple of years, people are peeling back those layers. Even LinkedIn itself has a campaign, what is professional, So I'm not saying we're going to go completely different, but we're going to just peel back some layers. We want to know the personal side of you as well as the professional. And, I don't know if you've seen a couple of times I've posted, I have a name for this. It's called Professional, not a typo, PERFESSIONAL. It's a combination of being personable, and professional, because another problem people have is too personal. There's some people who are too personal and some people are private. So it's just being personable. So it's something that I love that you're on LinkedIn now doing that, and we're getting to see you. The clarity.
Yeah. And
thing.
I will say, I still struggle with that piece, having worked in corporate for so long, that I definitely am a little bit more guarded with, the personal side. I know I see people out there, telling stories from when they were in high school or college, or, got fired. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm not there yet to be that vulnerable, I would say. Absolutely. Just because of my corporate training I built a little wall around me, I think, and not ready to take that sort of out there. But I know that that's really the next stage for me. That's really the breakthrough piece of like, you have the business, you have, how do you start talking about your internal struggles and your external struggles? And that's what connects people, because they're like, oh, they're human. They go through all this stuff, and we all have it. We all go through the exact same, ups and downs of life. And it's, you will see, like, I find that the content that tends to go, quote, viral is stuff that is highly personal, or that reveals some type of vulnerability that more than one person, of course, is feeling, but somebody else just put it in words.
No, that's so true. And one other thing that I know, like, I think it's a personality side too. Like, I'm very extroverted. but it's hard for me to, I think it's somewhat of what I was working in. And then just me, I'm very private. I've always been a private person. So I work in that too. So, being vulnerable or opening up, you don't have to tell your deepest, darkest family secrets. You can just tell work-related stories. That's interesting too, or the struggles people can relate. So that's something, I work with my clients too. They always want to know what's too personal. How do I share it? We all struggle in that. That's a hot topic. But I also wanted to talk about the clarity thing, because that's where people, especially come to me, especially being in corporate where you're just kind of like on autopilot and you don't really, define by your role. Now you're hopefully defining by you, to show your role and to help others. So I know we work together and stuff, but if you gave us ideas from clarity, what did clarity help you do, Stacey? I mean, you found out that you were strategic. That's actually when we work together, like that is your superpower. That's what you're helping people do in in your coaching programs and in your group coaching, in your group community, and also your content. So how did that clarity help you? And what does it look like now for where you're going?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great question. For me, it started with being able to declare something, because I have a lot of ideas. And, as a marketer, of course, I'm like, prone to the bright, shiny object syndrome. And I have a very diverse background and experience all throughout the different marketing function. So, I've worked for different sizes of companies. I've worked in different types of roles. I've worked in B2C and B2B. And I was really struggling with, what do all these things have in common? And how, could I sum up that whole entire experience in one word? And so once I kind of landed on that, and then got it, validated with other people, that was like the confidence, I guess, that I needed to then take it to the next step, which is, I know what I'm talking about, and to be able to publish content sort of with that lens, and to always be thinking, am I promoting myself in a way that naturally ties back to that word of being, strategic. If somebody's like, oh yeah, she's helping me develop a strategy, I could see how she's strategic. I could see how she's connecting dots that other people are not connecting. Right. And that's what I love to do. And so it has become easier to publish content. I mean, there's a huge hurdle, as you know, running the 365 challenge group that people have right in the beginning, which is, I don't know what to say. How are people going to perceive me? Is this content going to land or not? And, just being able to have that clarity, I think has helped get over all of those hurdles, and to have like a steady stream of ideas and inspiration and content that I can just easily publish instead of overthinking everything.
I can totally see the difference from this year and last. I mean, you're just and then you're meeting so many people and making all these connections for speaking and podcasting and all the things. So just in the short time, I mean, that's a great thing. Clarity I always say breeds confidence. And then, collaborations, community, clients, all those great things. But, if someone is struggling hearing this, take the time. And that's exactly why I do. This isn't a plug to work with me, but I encourage you to don't be trapped and stuck. Either people have too many ideas or they don't really know which avenue to take it, and that's, hey, my story of which I've said on this podcast in the welcome episode is I struggled with it for 5 years while I was working at my job. 5 years. That's a waste of time, right? Don't ever do that. So you've been in this 7 years. In the last 2-ish, you've been working on your personal brand. Now that you are leading with your personal brand, has that made any difference, better or worse? I'm sure better, but with, looking for big consulting clients. Tell us how that's changed for you.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, first I will echo and give you a plug, because I think it's really helpful to work with somebody else on this. Like you talked about, trying to figure it out yourself for 5 years, or for me, it was, I think also 5 years, just sitting here like back and forth. And it's one of those things that's helpful to have an outside perspective, and for somebody to guide you and say, oh, based on what you're saying, I'm going to distill it down to this one concept. And that's a helpful exercise to go through. So, but back to your question. Yeah, I think there was, yes, it has definitely, the personal brand focus has helped me gain more connections on LinkedIn and with potential clients, as well as influencers in the B2B marketing space. So I have gotten to appear on podcasts and gotten invited to events. And then all of that, I mean, what's the purpose of going on podcasts and events and speaking opportunities? It's one, to build relationships with the host and other people, but two, it's to help spread the word and create awareness for what you're doing. And so it's really an avenue. I think the personal branding has given me an avenue to then spread the word and create awareness for what I'm doing. So that, I would say, has been a huge bonus, and something that you're not going to get by just, hiding behind a company page on LinkedIn or sending out generic emails, right? People do business with people. And so that's the piece that we constantly just need to remember, that people want to buy into you. I have had people reach out to me that have read my book or, seen me on something, but now it's multiplied, because, if somebody read my book before, there wasn't a lot of content that I had to support. It was like, well, the book's on Amazon, and then I have a few blog posts on my website. But there was no, additional videos or thoughts or other ways for them to interact with me. And now what they can see is like, oh, I see that she has additional depth in these other subject areas. And I see that she's posting about certain things, and I can interact with her in a different way. So it's given them a way to get in touch with me as well. So all of that has been great.
No, that's so important, because once you get that clarity and you get the confidence, then you become that content machine that you need to be, either written, repurposing, you don't, when I say machine, I don't mean you create every day, but you need to keep, as an expertise-led consultant business, you need to keep showing that. And, I know you have those 2 books. Is like another book in your future, you think? I mean, you've warmed up the engine. Why stop now? Is that something you think?
Well, yeah, it's funny, because my first book was 2017. My second book was the end of 2020, right before the pandemic. And now I'm like, oh gosh, it's 2022. Like I'm on this 3-year, interval. So maybe I need to get another book in the works.
Yeah.
But
even just a smaller one. On what? Marketing strategy or what?
Well, I want it to actually be more personal, I think, and maybe like a lot more examples. The first book was definitely more on the academic side. It's for advanced practitioners of marketing, I would say. The second book was more on skill sets, and also kind of still a little bit more on the academic side. And this next book, I kind of want it to be easier to read, and something that people can, it's highly actionable right away. So I got to think about it.
Well, you're doing your best market research right now by doing content on LinkedIn and see what resonates. I know you've had a lot of posts just get so much traction. Yeah. So that's another way of, building that brand. So I absolutely love that you're forward facing. So I know you have Shake Marketing Group, you have the Shake Marketing domain. I mean, would you ever what would the path you would recommend? Would you just be more forward facing your website and, do content on social and off, do videos, all that stuff to help us build that trust? Or would you go do another? I know people who do another personal brand website page. What have you ever thought about that? How does your personal brand look for you in the next couple of years?
That's a great question. And I think it depends what avenue you envision. So as an example, I see a lot of consultants who want to work maybe with like an individual. So like an executive coaching type of platform or something like that. In that sense, people are hiring you. If you want to become a professional keynote speaker, and, if you want to be an author, keynote speaker, and then do coaching, then you might just end up with your own domain. Versus like my path was, I wanted to work with Fortune 500 companies. I don't know that and by the way, working with Fortune 500 companies as a consultant is like a whole sort of hoopla of, getting the paperwork in order, the statement of work, the insurance requirements. I mean, there's a bunch of sort of setup required to work with these bigger firms. And so for me, it's just easier to do all of that under a company name versus, establishing myself as the company. I think at minimum, you need like an LLC or S Corp to put everything under if you're doing that kind of work. And then I think I'll also say, and I don't know if a lot of freelancers listen to this, but I have seen freelancers who are hired, as an individual writer or a graphic designer, and they're hired as the individual. And so I think for those freelancers, it's perfectly fine to have, their website domain is their name, and they can house everything and samples of work and case studies and everything under that. Because, I just look at it as like, well, what does your client want to see? Does your client want to hire an individual? Does your client feel comfortable hiring a company? What are they, what's that setup look like?
That's exactly when I work with clients. I call your client the hybrid model. You still have a company name, but you're forward facing. There's a picture of you. Everything is about you. It's referenced you. It's almost like you're the star of the show here, but you have a company name and, and like on LinkedIn, you have a company page. It's the best of both worlds, but you're so right. It depends on who the client is. And mine's a little bit different. Like my website is michellebgriffin.com. I've had it since like 2015. So it's starting to get a little bit of domain, even though I need more content on it. So when I have company names or stuff in my consultancy, I'll just have it and then I'll forward it to it. So that's another way around it. But I do know that you definitely need, grab it if you can, just keep it because you can use it as a speaker or something later on. But I get that question a lot. Well, what domain should I use and all that? So
yes, I did buy my name.
You did?
I did buy StaceyDanheiser.com. I haven't done anything with it, but I have it.
Yeah, that's so important. Well, good. So now that that going from a corporate to consultant and now having a personal brand consultancy, as we talk about, is so important. It's changed everything for you, especially that. So you can do it and you're taking the next step. You're getting out there even more. You're doing content. You're going to write another book. You're doing a community. Tell us a little about the coaching program. I guess I want to say this question is more geared to the offerings. As you get out there, you see what the market needs, and tell us how that's translates to some of the new things you're developing.
Yes. Okay. That's, so I love to think about this concept of a pyramid. Okay. And so you have like the bottom of the pyramid, which is a offering that is a relatively low price point that you could offer to a lot of people. For me, the bottom of the pyramid is the book. It's, I had to write it one time and now it's on Amazon and it'll live on Amazon. I don't have to really do much. People can go buy it. And I can, put a marketing plan around that if I want to. The next rung of that ladder is like an online program or coaching program. So this is the piece that I'm developing right now, which is geared toward B2B marketers to kind of have the best of both worlds with a group learning kind of cohort where they're going to get training on how to develop a marketing strategy, how to sell it into their C-suite, how to get the resources that they need to execute that plan, and ultimately how to get promoted. So I've been testing this program over the past year, and the results have been really great because the people I've been working with have gotten promoted. They've gotten accolades. They've gotten more budget. And then, what makes me happy is when I hear things like, wow, their credibility has like 10x. Like they walk into the room and people now believe them and they know what they're saying and they are invited to participate in strategic conversations. So that to me is a win. The idea with that middle kind of part of the pyramid is that you can offer this to a lot of people because there's like a hybrid model, right? It's online, but then we meet once a week and have sort of these conversations. As more and more people kind of grow into the program, you could expand that and invite more people. And so that's kind of the second rung of the ladder. And then the top of the ladder, the pyramid for me is consulting. It's one-on-one consulting. It's working with those Fortune 500 companies or Inc. 5000 fastest growing companies on, this is more like a one-on-one fractional CMO type of role where I am helping them build their marketing foundation, hire the right people, set up their marketing strategy, test value propositions and make sure that their content is really supporting that value proposition. And the reason, like, as you think of a pyramid, it gets really small at the top of that pyramid because, in my view, I did not want a lot of those. That means like I can only handle, 4 or 5 of those at one time before I get tapped out. Versus the middle section, I can add that with just myself. And the book, of course, is already online living. So, when I first started, I started at the very top of the pyramid, which was the one-on-one consulting. And then it's just sort of over time where I've built the other sort of rungs of that ladder. But and what I realized, and this is just, a side note for everybody because I'm a professional marketer. So of course I build the product and the offering, but each one of those offers really require its own marketing plan and its own sort of care and feeding. Mm-hmm. And I think where the personal brand comes into play is that I can, at any given point in time, I can kind of point somebody toward one of those offerings. Oh, if you're interested in just kind of the DIY stuff, here's the book, go read it. All the frameworks are in there. You can figure out how to implement it on your own. Versus if you want to take the next step, I'm available to teach you and to coach you. You're going to do it in a group format where you're going to have other students to bounce ideas off of. And then at the top, if you want me to do it for you, then, that's that kind of one-on-one model. So
I love that. Yeah, that's like my product. I call my product ladder, but I absolutely love even more the pyramid because I love how you hit the DIY, done with you and done for you. I would say at this moment, as we record, SOAR Marketing Society would kind of be at the base of that too, right? Because okay. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, that's a free offering, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's the community right now is free. I envision that to be something that is an add-on for these online programs. Where it becomes like there's a private section mm-hmm. for members of the group program, so they can mm-hmm. go in and share ideas in a private setting. But yes, exactly.
No, this is really good because one of the things I help you do is brand it, market it, and then monetize it. And one of the things we do, of course, and like number 4, my 7 steps is your offerings and your journey. And that's huge. So I absolutely love that you have it inverted and different revenue streams. Everyone should have different revenue streams, not only for just income, but for not getting bored, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Cause I get bored easily. I mean, I love what I do, but I absolutely love changing up and different things. So that's a wonderful lesson that Stacey just gave us on the personal brand pyramid on your offering. So thank you, Stacey, for that. So as we wrap up today, I just want to thank you for sharing all this nuggets of someone who's walked the path and still walking, but is ahead of many of us who are, getting out there, especially with the Great Resignation. I mean, they're coming in droves and I love it, right? I absolutely love that we have more amazing people out there sharing their expertise and their message with those, and that's the way to do it. Personal branding. So Stacey, I asked this for all my guests and hopefully you'll have an answer because I forgot to tell you ahead of time, which we can edit out, but, Stacey, what is a personal or professional mantra that you love to practice or tell your clients? It kind of relates to maybe what we're doing here today. Any words of advice there?
I love to learn. I'm a learner. The people that I hire are learners. The people I gravitate toward are learners. So my mantra is always be learning. And to be able to not, when I think of learning, it's not just kind of consuming information and knowledge, but then being able to act on that and experiment. And that's really the only way we continue to grow is to realize learning does not stop when we end school, but is a lifelong journey. And so that's really been my approach. And I love, I'm like, oh, let's write a book. That would be fun. Oh, let's launch a new website. That'll be fun. So that's just sort of always my approach of just constantly being out there and learning.
Oh, I love it. That's why we get along so well because I'm a learner too. And I love how you say, make sure you create and do versus consume because that's a downside. If you're a learner, a curious learner, you just keep getting a little bit addicted to learning. So I love that you have the applied learning aspect to it. And that's huge. But, it's the difference too, when you learn on your own versus what you were forced to learn back in the day in school changes everything. And then we're in the best and brightest times to, anything you want to learn is for free out there. or next to nothing. So love that. Never stop learning, never stop learning. Well, Stacey, tell us where we can find you, especially if you're maybe interested in that upcoming cohort, your SOAR Marketing Society. Tell us where to find you.
Yep. So I would love to connect on LinkedIn, Stacey Danheiser, and maybe you could put the link in the show notes for that. And then if you're in B2B marketing, I would invite you to check out SOAR Marketing Society, which is soarmarketing.club. And then you can also check out our website and some resources and things that we have there. There's a link to my books and a bunch of white papers and other things that I've accumulated over the past couple of years. So yes, I mean, one more piece of advice I would say, just as I was thinking about it, I ran across this person today who was a former corporate employee, and now she started a TikTok/Instagram page teaching people how to use Excel, Microsoft Excel. Have you seen her, Miss Excel?
Miss Excel, yes. She's amazing.
Yes. And so what I love about that is that she's taken a topic which is pretty dry and traditionally boring, and she made it fun. So she kind of owned her expertise and figured out a unique and interesting way to deliver it. And it just shows you that there's a ton of space to be yourself and to have fun with it and not be so rigid. And I think, I would listen to an interview that she did where she said, look, I worked in a corporate environment. I was shy and I was always like pigeonholed into this little box. And it just reminds me of so many people, including myself, like being in a corporate environment where you kind of have this, certain definition and that you don't really go outside of that box. But then when you turn into the consultant or entrepreneur, you now have freedom to do that. So I was inspired by her.
Absolutely. Especially if you're taking it out there with a personal brand, and she's amazing to follow. And to say that, or to know that she was introverted and, squished in a box, and now she's dancing on TikTok. And not to mention, it's so profitable. You read the story about her, Miss Excel, she's crazy. Killing it with money too, profitability. So so never stop, learning, and never stop wanting to help people with your expertise, because there's a way to get out there, to brand it, to market, to monetize, and just to have a fulfilling life and business with it. So take it from Stacey and I, it's a great way to be. So Stacey, thank you so much. Oh, and I just want to say, if you are on LinkedIn, which I hope most of us are who listen here, please give Stacey a follow. We'll have it in the show notes, because she just puts out the most thought-provoking posts that all about marketing strategy and how to get a seat at the table. Oh, it's just really good. So she's a must follow for sure in the B2B marketing space. So shout out there. So Stacey, thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here, sharing your story. We look forward to seeing what's coming up in the next couple of weeks and months in that book. I'll be looking for that book. So we'll be rooting for you. So guys, that's it for today's episode. If you're in a corporate turned consultant or wanting to be consultant entrepreneur, this is the episode that I hope you got a lot from. Stacey gave us her story, her goals, and also her advice on how to get out there, what to do, what not to do, and just, have fun with it, because, you have an expertise and a message to share. So we want you to get out there. So until next time, you have a brand to build, a business to grow, and people to impact. So I'll catch you next time. Bye, everybody. Thanks so much for tuning in. We need more impactful professionals, entrepreneurs, and leaders just like you getting out there, sharing your expertise. So if you'd like to know more about how I can help you or your team grow your professional personal brand, please check out yourbrandyourbusiness.com. And until next time, you have a brand to build, a message to share, and people to impact. Now go put yourself out there and watch the business of you grow.